Welcome, everybody. We're so glad you're here tonight. Tonight is a very special night. We have an opportunity to really hear from a group of very distinguished panelists about their careers and about their experiences in leadership. This panel was entitled Similar Journeys and the Same Obstacles with a question mark. So we have the opportunity tonight also to ask a series of questions of this very experienced panel. So the process that I'm going to use tonight is to introduce our panelists. So I'm actually going to spend the time, tell you a little bit about each of the distinguished women up here, what their background is, and then we'll probably do a series of 4 to 5 questions, and at the end of that process, I'll open the floor for questions from you, where you have an opportunity to ask any particular question of any individual up here. So that should take us probably about an hour, is my estimation. So let me introduce the panelists tonight. Let me start with Rosa Gatti. Rosa Gatti is a consultant, and she's a retired ESPN Senior Vice President of Communications Council and Corporate Outreach. Rosa was really noted as being a pioneer at ESPN in cable television and as a woman in sports. Rosa retired in 2013 as ESPN's Senior Vice President after 33 years of service.
Yay. That's awesome. Well done. That's amazing.
And she's not escaped. She serves on several nonprofit boards. So no retirement for you, Rosa. Gatti joined ESPN in 1980 in its first year of operation as Director of Communications, and she really began to help grow the ESPN brand with her team through public and media relations strategies. During her tenure, she developed ESPN's global corporate outreach programs in corporate giving, volunteerism, and cause marketing, including multifaceted projects for the V Foundation for Cancer Research and some of the other major projects that ESPN sponsored. Prior to ESPN, Gatti enjoyed a distinguished career as the first female sports information director at an NCAA major college, her alma mater, Villanova. Not UNH. In 1974.
Number 6 in the country.
She became the Ivy League's first female sports information director when she was recruited by Brown University in 1976. Gatti currently serves on UNH's Board of Governors and is a past executive in residence here at UNH. She's received numerous honors for her public and community relations efforts, including an honorary doctorate degree in business administration from the University of New Haven. So,
We're proud of her. Thank you.
next person I'd like to introduce is Michelle Wilson. Michelle is right here. Michelle Wilson joined the WWE in February 2009 as Executive Vice President of Marketing and was elevated to Chief Marketing Officer in 2011. In 2013, Wilson was promoted to be Chief Revenue and Marketing Officer and serves in this role today. In this role, as the Chief Revenue and Marketing Officer for WWE, she oversees all of the company's revenue lines, including consumer products, sponsorship sales, pay-per-view, and new business development. Wilson also oversees marketing, corporate communications, creative services, entertainment relations, special events, research, and community relations.
And I don't sleep.
No, never sleep.
Occasionally.
And she's also in the process of spearheading the company's efforts to launch the WWE Network. So watch for her. Wilson has ushered in a new approach for WWE in sales and sponsorships and has worked to really secure some key partnerships with blue chip brands and companies including Post Foods, General Mills, Frito-Lay, Kraft Foods, General Motors, Mars, Colgate, Nestle, and 7-Eleven. She's also been instrumental in forging new partnerships with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the Susan G. Komen, the 2014 Special Olympics U.S. Games, Special Olympics Connecticut and Kaboom, and Hire Heroes USA. Prior to joining WWE, Wilson was the Chief Marketing Officer of the United States Tennis Association, where she was instrumental in making the U.S. Open the highest attended annual sporting event in the world. Wilson oversaw all the marketing efforts for the launch of the XFL Football League, a partnership between WWE and NBC. Did I get that right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. She also held positions at the National Basketball Association and its domestic and international consumer products groups. Before her career in the sports industry, Wilson held brand management positions at Nabisco. Wilson is also a past executive in residence at UNH. She is a cum laude graduate of the University of Pennsylvania and holds an MBA from the Harvard Business School. Please welcome Michelle. Next person I'd like to introduce is Dr. Donna Lopiano, who is currently president and founder of the Sports Management Resources. SMR, as it's known, is a consulting firm that focuses on bringing the knowledge of experienced, expert former athletic directors to really assist scholastic and collegiate athletics departments in solving growth and development challenges. Dr. Lopiano is the former CEO of the Women's Sports Foundation. She served from 1992 to 2007 and was named one of the 10 most powerful women in sports by the Fox Sports, among many of other honors she's held. She's been nationally and internationally recognized for her leadership as an athletics administrator and for her work advocating for gender equity in sports by the International Olympic Committee, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, the National Association for Girls and Women in Sports, the National Association for Collegiate Women Athletic Administrators, and the National Association for Collegiate Directors of Athletics. Dr. Lopiano also served for 18 years as the University of Texas at Austin's Director of Women's Athletics and is past president of the Association for Intercollegiate Athletics for Women. During her tenure at Texas, she constructed what many believed to be the premier women's athletics program in the country. Prior to Texas, Lopiano served as an assistant professor and assistant athletic director at Brooklyn College at City University of New York. Recognized as one of the foremost national experts on gender equity in sports, Dr. Lopiano has testified about Title IX and gender equity before 3 congressional committees and served as a consultant to the U.S. Office for Civil Rights and the Department of Health, Education and Welfare Title IX Task Force. And she's also served as an expert witness in over 30 court cases. She received her bachelor's degree from Southern Connecticut State University, her master's and doctoral degrees from the University of Southern California, and is the recipient of 5 honorary doctoral degrees. This does not include all her honors as an athlete and coach, which are many too numerous to list here today.
When she was young.
So welcome, Dr. Lopiano. Our last guest tonight is Patricia Meiser. Patricia Meiser is currently Director of Athletics and a Special Assistant to the President at the University of Hartford. She's in her 21st year at the University of Hartford, and most recently serves in this capacity as Director of Athletics. She's one of just 30 women Director of Athletics among the 335 institutions competing at the Division I level. In June of 2009, she was named the Northeast Region's Division I AAA Under Armour Athletic Director of the Year for the second time in 2006. And in May of 1999, she was named one of the nation's top 50 women sports executives by Street and Smith Sports Business Journal. At Hartford, Meiser heads a team that is responsible for growing the athletics and the academic quality of the program, enhancing revenue, and extending the program into the community. Under her leadership, the Hawks have won back-to-back American East Academic Cups in 2012 and 2013. The Academic Cup honors the top school in the league for the highest combined grade point average among all conference-sponsored sports. In addition, Meiser is past chair of the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau and a present member of the CVSB Executive Board. In 2013, she was honored by the National Conference for Community and Justice with the Human Relations Award, while she also received the Connecticut Women's Educational and Legal Fund Award in 2012. Prior to joining the Hawks, Meiser was the Associate Athletics Director for Administration and the Senior Women's Administrator at the University of Connecticut. During her 10 years at Connecticut, she played a pivotal role in the rejuvenation of the athletics program. Before arriving at Connecticut, Meiser was the head women's basketball coach and a tenured faculty member at Penn State. Meiser holds a bachelor's degree in health and physical education from Westchester University and a master's in education and an MBA in business administration from Penn State. She's a native of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Yay, I'm from Pennsylvania.
So am I.
So am I.
Yay, oh, here you go.
That's so funny.
And has 4 children.
It's funny.
And she also has 3 grandchildren, Lincoln, Lyle, Josephine, both of whom are 4, and Willem, who is 2 years old.
Wow.
So please welcome Patricia. So tonight we have the benefit of all this experience, and this experience is really here to share some stories with us about their careers, about their experiences in leadership. And with such a distinguished panel, I think what I'm going to do is start out with my first question for the panel, which is, what were some of the key factors that played a role in your success? So maybe we can start, Donna, with you. Think about that.
Well, I think everyone attributes, well, I can't say that for all of you, but I think all of us would credit our parents with our value systems and our moral compass. I think one of the most difficult things to keep in this day and age of intercollegiate athletics in particular is a solid philosophy of educational sport, a moral compass about what is right and wrong. So I'd say moral compass number 1, work ethic number 2. I think to be successful, you really do outwork everyone else. Personally, I feel that one of the reasons for my success is I've always had a almost fanatical attention to detail. I wanted to make sure that any opinion that I've ever rendered was solidly based in fact, and I knew what the most recent numbers were, that no one could question whatever position I took, that there was a solid research base. And in this day and age, when we live in this world of social media that values your opinion rather than your mastery of the facts, I think it's good to reflect on the importance of that. And I think, attention to detail, that excellence really, the difference between good and great is attention to detail.
Okay, thank you. Patricia, your thoughts?
Thank you. Just before I offer my thoughts, I'd just like to say that to my left and to my right are women that I have admired for so long. Donna Lopiano has led this country and I mean truly led this country, and whenever anyone asks, I say it's Dr. Lopiano, has led this country in the issue of equity and opportunities for women. So it's really special to be here beside her in this exercise today. When I was young and I traveled from Penn State up to Hartford, Connecticut, one of the first power women I saw on a podium was Rosa Gatti. And she was just so inspiring to me, and I think we've learned for quite some time that role modeling in itself is so incredibly important. And I believe there's some research, Donna probably knows where it is, that points to the importance of actually being female and being a leader, and its impacts, ever so subtle at times, on the future lives of people that are developing their careers. So it's great to be here with all of you. In answer to the question about values and philosophies, I would agree with Donna. My parents set pretty tough standards in the house. There was no coach calling home to say that I was in trouble, but if there were, my father would have said, go take care of business. I expect you to do things the right way. And so parental leadership certainly was a factor. I would also say that along the way, making certain that you have the experiences, and they're not all pretty, and they're not all good, and they're not all fun. I too have spent many, many hours, stayed in my office through the night trying to tackle a task. But those experiences are the notches on your belt that give you a chance to be a little tough, a little understanding when something comes at you. So having a resume and experiences that give you the inner confidence to step into a position where you say, oh, I hope I can do this, I hope I can do this. Yes, you can do it if you have built that resume and had experiences. I would also say that the network is really important, at least in the intercollegiate athletic world. You need to build a network where people know that you work really hard, you're committed to the team, that you can be counted on. And when you start to develop that reputation, that you're positive, you're a bright light, you've got that smile going, when you build that reputation, it travels. So when the next job opportunity comes up, it's one that you've got some people that you don't even know are in your corner saying, oh yeah, great young or old individual, great individual, can't miss. Make sure you get them in for an interview. So it starts young. It doesn't start later. Everything you do matters in how you do it. You want to be professional in the way you conduct your business. You want to learn over your years how to control emotions. And I know for all of us, that is a tough thing. We're all competitive in spirit. We come from a love of sport, and when you get into the office and in the public setting, you will be challenged. You will be challenged. And you always want to make sure that you take the high road, and most of all, that you be true to your heart. And I've heard Dr. Lopiano speak, and I know that the core of who she is about what's good and right in this world. And if you make decisions based on your gut and what you know is right, then you're not going to lose. You may not have that job because, unfortunately, someone above you may feel like, well, we're just going to cut the corner here and you're not interested in cutting the corner, that's okay. You will bounce and land on your feet someplace. So,
Great, thank you, thank you.
Rosa, tell us a little bit
Ditto
about
Donna and ditto.
some of the key factors.
Growing up as a little girl in the Philadelphia era, we love our sports. But girls just didn't think about careers in sports at that time. Maybe you would be a basketball coach, but you didn't think about the business of sports and having that as a career. So I never dreamt of what I would become. I was a language major. But I love sports. And, you know, I think back when I was graduating from college, it was a very similar climate back in 1972. It sounds like the Middle Ages, right? But it was a similar climate, hard to get jobs. And I waitressed and worked in a department store. So how many of you are seniors? Yeah, it's scary. But you know, if you just get out there and start working, opportunities open up and you stay in touch with people. So exactly what Donna said, parents, values, the foundation of my education. It's the basic principles. I wasn't the smartest one in the room, but it was all of my experiences and working hard. I love Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, and he talks about the 10,000 hours, a threshold. Well, my mom would vouch. I would be working till 11 o'clock at night, midnight, on the job. And early on, you know, that doesn't sound great. We all want to have our balance of work life, but I really believe that by working that much harder, you know, I achieved more. And once you do that, I took a job as a secretary in sports information. That's a long story, how I got the job. And I'm happy to talk about that at some point. But I really attribute it to my education and the hard work. And then people notice. And back then, you know, we didn't send press releases out by email. We were stuffing envelopes, snail mail, right? And I used to sit there thinking, you know, who's noticing? This is ridiculous. Look how much time I'm spending just stuffing envelopes. Well, you know what? People do notice. They're always watching you. And I used to hate, people would say it's who you know. It's really, what it's really about is who can speak on your behalf? Who's going to make that phone call on your behalf and say, Linda, John, unbelievable. They don't give up, they volunteer. So it is that reputation that you build upon those values and honesty. And honesty, you know, everyone says you should be honest, but you know what? Those who are honest in the workplace are in the minority. So when you are honest and you own up to your mistakes, you continue to build your reputation. And one thing leads to another.
Okay, thank you.
Great, so
Keys to success.
I am from Pennsylvania also, so
Yay.
big-time Philadelphia sports fan as well. So but a little bit of different background for myself. I actually grew up in a single-parent household and didn't always have the advantages that a lot of younger people may have had. My mom was pregnant at 19, dropped out of college, had me 11 months later, and didn't always have the opportunities, so I didn't necessarily have the guidance, and I know there are probably several of you out there that didn't have those advantages as well, and it has to come from inside. And I had the advantage of having great grandparents who happened to be hardcore Philadelphia Phillies, Philadelphia Flyers, Philadelphia Eagles fans. And so when my single mom was out working until midnight trying to raise my sister and I, that was who I spent a lot of time with, were my grandparents. And they taught me a lot about sports, my grandfather in particular. And he always said to me, you know, maybe you can be a sportscaster someday. And I used to laugh and never again thought about having a career in sports. So I will say that, you know, coming from a little bit of a different background from parents who didn't have a college education, that was really the first thing that my mom instilled in me is, listen, I made some mistakes. I didn't always take the right path. and said, you have to go to college, you have to get a good education. Would I have ever dreamt that I was able to have an Ivy League education? No. It was a lot of hard work, and I will tell you that anything is possible. You don't have to come from a certain background to be able to have a successful career. Sometimes you don't always get the best parental guidance, but if within yourself you believe in what you want to do and what you have a passion for, I truly believe anybody has the potential to be successful. And again, I know you've heard it from these 3 other very successful women that along the way it's a lot of hard work. What I would just add to that is that after I got my education and the hard work, that somebody gave me very good advice, another woman who went to ESPN many years ago, Judy Fearing. I don't know if you knew Judy Fearing, but I was working for Judy Fearing. I was fresh out of graduate school and kind of stumbling around, not really sure what I wanted to do. And she gave me 2 good pieces of advice. And the first one was, find something that you're really passionate about and figure out how to get paid doing that, because you'll never feel like you're going to work every day. And Judy's passion happened to be sports, and as was mine. And I thought, wow, if I can really figure out my way into that industry, it doesn't feel like work. And I can tell you, while the hours are long and the commitment and work-life balance can be challenging, if you do something you love, it really doesn't feel like work. And I can say that every day going to work for Vince McMahon is fun. It really is entertaining and a great experience. So I will say, just in terms of advice and what I think has made me successful beyond the working hard is the willingness to take chances and not be afraid to fail. And I will tell you, every single job that I took in the sports world, I thought to myself, I don't know how I just got this job. I'm not really sure how to do it. I'm petrified that I'm going to fail, but I am going to put my head down. I'm going to learn as much as I can. I'm going to be prepared in every meeting that I go to. I'm always going to have a point of view when my boss asks me, what do I think we should do? And that ability of not being afraid to fail, I really think is a huge part of success, is you have to be willing to take chances. And along the way, you have to have mentors to help you. And again, whether it was at the NBA when I was working for David Stern, who just recently retired as the commissioner of the NBA, he was a great mentor. I learned a lot from him. Vince McMahon is a great mentor to me today. And without mentors, it's okay to be afraid and it's okay to be worried whether you can succeed, because they help you. They kind of take away that fear. They teach you. They guide you. So I will say finding a mentor and thinking through what you can add is really important. The last piece I will say is just about managing your own career. The other piece of advice that Judy Fearing gave me was not only to find something you love and get paid doing it every day, it was to manage your own career. And I heard you just mentioned the fact that, if you work hard, people will notice. Well, I have to tell you that there were many situations where I worked really hard and didn't necessarily get noticed for it. And it was Judy who said to me, nobody's going to hand you a promotion. Nobody's going to say, hey, this is the next project. You really have to manage it yourself. And there is a way to do that, being very respectful to those around you, but you really have to take it into your own hands and make sure that you do the hard work, but that you also take advantage of the fact that you have to manage your own career, because no one will do it for you. And again, that was advice Judy gave me probably 20 years ago, and I will tell you, I give the same advice to people in your positions who are looking out, how do I get ahead? You really got to rely on yourself and mentors to make it happen.
I just want to add on to that, Michelle. You're so right. I used to sit there and watch people getting promoted, and I'd say, how the heck did they get promoted, and I didn't get promoted? And I learned that you do have to speak up. And I remember telling one of our presidents at ESPN that I could do some other things besides PR. And he said, really? Like what? And be prepared. Also, be careful what you ask for.
Exactly.
I said human resources was one area. And so 4 years later, he decided to give me human resources to oversee. And I was like, oh, no. That's a very tough position. Really? But you're right on. You can't just sit back and right, you have to speak up.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the early part of the career and asking what were some of the key factors that really played a role in success. It's everything from work ethic to parents to, professional behavior, taking the high road. But when you think back on your career, What challenges or obstacles did you really face, and how did you overcome them? I mean, there's a thread here that people touched on, but I'd like you to address that specifically. What you thought were some of the obstacles and challenges that you really did face that had an impact on the early part of your career, and how you overcame them?
Good answer.
Start with Rosa.
First of all, I was very shy, and here I was in public relations. And what happened was I was offered a secretarial job, and I had no idea what sports PR was about, and it was fascinating, and I just developed this passion for it and loved it, and I became assistant. And then 2 years into it, my boss left in the middle of the football season, and I was the only other full-time person. And so here's the situation to your question, the challenge. On one hand, because I was one of the few women in sports information, people would remember me when I would go to meetings, right? So there was an advantage. But the disadvantage was being taken seriously. And while that was the Middle Ages, it happens today. And so how you come across, how you present yourself, how do people perceive you is really critical. So there are defining moments in your career. I was friendly with all the other secretaries, assistants on campus, and I was hearing, even though I was working temporarily as the full-time sports information director for 2 months, I wasn't going to get the job. And my boss wasn't telling me that. And the secretary to the president said, "You should talk with Father President." I said, "Okay, sure." I was 24 years old. I didn't even think about protocol. I didn't even tell my boss that I was going to see the president of the university. That's a big no-no. He wasn't very happy after this little meeting. But when I was talking with this Augustinian priest, and he said, "Well, what are you here for, Rosa?" I said, "Well, Father, I've been doing this job, but do you think I will get it?" And he said, "No, I don't think so." And I said, "Thank you, Father, for being honest with me." He was the first one to be honest with me. But it was as if it were an out-of-body experience, like someone took over. I say I was guided. But I think where it came from was that fairness, the values, and conviction that I wasn't being treated fairly. And I said, "Father, why not?" And he said, "Well, some of the coaches are concerned about a woman traveling with the team, the locker room, so on and so forth." And by the way, this was the time. And I said, "Well, Father, most of the coaches are very happy. I'm getting all this publicity." And he said, "Well, there's one coach that's very concerned." And then he said, I said, "Well, if most of the coaches are happy with me." He said, "Well, we're concerned about the media. The media might write negatively about Villanova, having to deal with a woman." And guess what? That was a concern at that time. But I was working with the media, getting stories. So I said, "Father, if the media wrote negatively about Villanova, I would be the first to resign." Not till years later did I realize I was negotiating. I didn't even know I was negotiating. It was really fairness and conviction. And he overruled the athletic director, and I got the position. Otherwise, I'd be a French interpreter somewhere.
Great.
But so that was the challenge, and I think it exists today, is really people accepting you for who you are.
Great, thanks, Rosa. Michelle, how
Sure.
about you?
So rather than the personal challenge, because I will say I am appreciative of all the women on this panel. I probably came a couple years after them, and they really paved the way for people of my generation to come in and have a career in sports, and I'm appreciative of that because that wasn't always the case, so thank you for that. I'll talk a little bit more about business challenges because I think it's interesting in many positions that I had. that I encounter every time, and that is the challenge conventional wisdom or challenging traditional thinking. And I spent 8 years in the tennis world. And tennis, for those of you who are tennis fans, very traditional sport, very much about rules, tennis whites at Wimbledon. I played tennis in high school and in college, and but didn't really know the politics of tennis. And I will tell you that I spent 8 years in that world challenging tradition. And I think that was a good lesson. I was up against tradition every step of the way. So again, some practical examples. We wanted to institute instant replay in tennis, and the traditionalists were like, blasphemy, like instant replay in tennis? Are you kidding me? That's what line judges are for. Those line judges won't have jobs anymore. We wanted to change the color of the court to blue. That was my idea. It was a marketing idea. But there was also technical reasons. And again, everybody threw their hands up. Is she crazy? Why would you change the courts to blue? And now if you guys look at tennis courts around the U.S., most of them are blue and green. Things like music playing in the stadium. How dare you? It's tennis. Shh, it's supposed to be quiet. Nobody's supposed to talk. And I think the ability to kind of respect tradition, but challenge it in a way with facts and figures. Again, it goes back to, why? And I would tell them, great, I will respect tradition, but there's a reason why we'll do this. We need to move the sport forward. We need to bring younger generations into watching tennis. They like music. They like instant replay. They like social media. They don't want everything to be quiet. We had cheering in between breaks, etc. But there's a way to do that, and I find that by challenging tradition, while it's not easy, ultimately when you deliver results and it helps grow the business, it's really been something that I've seen to be a great thing. And now kind of fast forward into my career now, I was talking to some of you in the front row, in the world of WWE, it's quite the opposite. It's not the tradition in the sense of the world that tennis, but it's still business. And in the last 4 years, I've spent many late nights working with Vince McMahon directly on how do we launch a WWE network. And again, Rosa, you'll appreciate this being at ESPN for so many years. A lot of people say, no, you can't do that. Nobody's launching networks anymore. And no, you can't do this. And no, that's not the way it's done. And last week, literally 9 days ago, we launched a WWE network in a way that's never been done before. Absolute history breaking in that we launched an over-the-top network where it's streaming 24/7. It's better than Netflix and Hulu in that it's just like a cable channel, but you can get it through your PlayStation, your Xbox, not to do an advertising, but it's available for $9.99. And again, the great part of that is that people tell you no, and they tell you why you can't do something because something's been done this way for 50 years. And I think, again, kind of personal fortitude, Donna's point, having your homework, having your facts, and presenting what the growth opportunity is, for me, that's really been the kind of professional obstacles, and it seems to follow me everywhere that I'm like, how do we help grow this business? How do we help grow this professional sport? And it's by challenging conventional thinking in a way that the traditionalists can see an upside. They can see a positive. They can see growth. They can see more money. They can see more fans coming along because of those things. And again, it takes a lot of hard work and perseverance, but in the end, when you do something groundbreaking like that, it's extremely rewarding. So again, more from a personal, less from a personal, more from business obstacles that you'll find when you're out there in the world. Don't be afraid to challenge kind of conventional wisdom.
Great, thank you.
Just a couple of scenarios from my background that speak to the issue of obstacles. And this goes way, way back, but I was a JV coach at Penn State in basketball in the early 70s. Title IX had been introduced, and we had till 1978 to get in compliance at Penn State. And so at that time, there were 13 women head coaches. 4 of them, when our dean told us we were moving into scholarships for women, 4 of them said, nope, not going to do it. I don't want to be in that business. They had very negative feelings about recruiting. I, of course, said, please consider me. I believe that that's a great opportunity for young women. And so in 1974, I was named the head coach and gave the first women's basketball scholarship. And my point to you is, look for the openings. Look for the openings that might be available, and if it means you step up and say, I think I can help you out here, I can do this, I would like to do this, give me a chance, you may be surprised at what you hear back. But keep your ears and eyes open to those opportunities. I'd also like to share with you, I think, a story, it's very personal, but it, to me, speaks so much to who I am today and the strength I have as a leader and as a woman. I was the head women's basketball coach at Penn State, and lo and behold, little ones running around, but lo and behold, found myself in the middle of a divorce. And once I was able to catch my breath and step back and think calmly about where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, the big question was, how can I do this? Is it right to even think I could continue to do this? And I would say yes to that now. But what I did was, I did resign as the head coach in 1980 at Penn State. I had a top 20 women's basketball program. And what I did was I started to prepare myself for the next career. And what I found after I interviewed, I'd gotten my MBA, I had interviewed with Stanley Works, Texas Instruments, Exxon, IBM. I decided to follow my passion and stay close to the thing that really made me tick, and that was athletics, the sports world. And what I want you to know there is that there are so many different ways, if you have that in your heart, there are so many different ways that you can be a part of the sports world today. Books are written, but 15, 20 major avenues of sport-related careers. And so you can always stay close to it if that's where your heart wants to take you. And the strength to say, yes, I can be a senior women's administrator. I interviewed at Tennessee. I interviewed with the NCAA championships department, and I interviewed at Connecticut. And I remember coming back from the NCAA, Walter Byers, Donna knew.
Oh, yes.
Walter Byers was the executive director, and I leaned my head against the side of the plane, and I think tears rolled down my face for the entire trip because I said, well, I can't do championships at the NCAA because my little kids need me more, but maybe there's another place. And so I had irons in the fire and ended up taking the SWA's position at Connecticut, which was just a great place for me to be able to raise my kids as a single mom and have my career, and it's been great. But it was clearly an obstacle in every sense of the word. So no matter what comes your way, step back, take deep breaths, talk to people, consult, think, and when you get free of some of that emotion, then you'll see things will open up in terms of ideas and opportunities.
Good one. I was thinking, the first thought that came to mind when you said, what were your challenges? When you're young, you have no challenges. It's only excitement, and you don't recognize it. And I think one of the real gifts is the naivety of youth. I remember going to the University of Texas in 1975, and here I was, a Yankee, an Italian. This is, they used to call me Ida Lopiano because they couldn't pronounce my last name, and only you guys would know Ida Lopiano was an actress, the only Italian name that they knew. And I was a woman coming in. There was no women's athletic program. There was only a national championship football program and a football icon, Darrell Royal, who was the equivalent of Lou Saban. It was that kind of environment. And here, a Yankee female comes in. And I think the two things I brought with me were this naivety of youth and this ability to communicate a vision. Because personally, I was excited. I walked into the University of Texas, and immediately I said, it might take us 5 years to win a national championship, but we're going to win one. But in the course of doing that, we're going to have a 95% graduation rate. If you send your daughter to the University of Texas, you're going to be proud about her command of the English language and the way she handles herself with the media. We are not going to commit rules violations. We're going to do this the right way, and every one of our teams, you walk as soon as they walk on the court, you will see 100% effort. And I promise you, you will be proud of this program. And the ability to communicate a vision that people buy into, as opposed to being defensive and worried about, am I a Yankee or am I a woman? Or I didn't even think of those things. And I can remember that I was at the University of Texas. Within my first 2 weeks, I got a call from Washington, D.C., from a couple of lawyers, and they said, do you have a copy, or can you get a copy of the men's athletic budget? I said, absolutely. I know Darryl Royal, the director of women's athletics, the head football coach. All I have to do is walk across campus, ask them for a budget. And they said, you could do this? And this was 1975, in the middle of the Title IX debates. I said, absolutely. I walked across campus. I said, Darryl, can I have a copy of your budget? He says, absolutely. Asked my secretary, Betty. Went to get the budget from Betty. There were no fax machines. There were no emails. It took a while to get this done. A couple of days later, I get a call saying, can we have a copy of your budget too? I said, absolutely. It's on one page. It's only $70,000. $20,000 is my salary. His was 10, 15 pages, $6 million or something. And then they said, would you like to come to Washington, D.C. to testify before Congress? And what was my reaction? I said, wait till I tell my mother. She's going to be so proud. Her daughter, the doctor, is going to testify before Congress. So the epitome of naivety. But it when you bring excitement to the game, when you bring honesty to the game in terms of this is the right thing to do, this is what gender equity is all about, it kind of works out in the end.
Well, thank you for sharing some of these ideas about the early part of your career. And now I want to sort of move to sort of the here and now and ask this group to really think about the leadership positions that you've held and what might be one of the best or the worst leadership experiences that you'd like to share with this audience, and what factors have made it either the best or the worst.
I would say that over my 45-year career, the best part of, one of the best parts is having a chance to run the University of Hartford's athletic program. And the challenges, I've thought a lot about this in the last couple of months since I've announced my retirement this July. And what I've come to understand is that the competitive soul in me is the same. I can't even count the number of individuals who have said, do you miss coaching? Do you miss coaching? I say only the last 2 minutes in a tight game. Other than that, no. And then I respond also by saying that I have 18 teams, and having a chance to really grow a program, and I know Donna has done that at Texas in fabulous ways. But having a chance to be creative, to work hard, to motivate individuals, to help launch careers, and quite frankly, I've had to fire coaches. That's not easy, but I've always believed in every action that I've taken, something good will come from it. And whether it's counseling someone to leave the business because I know their heart's not in it, they're not doing well, whether it's having a very serious discussion with a student athlete. Many, many doors closed meetings with student athletes and individuals who are struggling for a variety of reasons, having a chance to maybe change their lives a little bit and move them in a direction that's more positive for them. So the big scene of developing a program and growing a program, very proud when I was at Connecticut, we went from the bottom of the Big East to the top. I know how that happened, and I believe that that enabled me to go over to the University of Hartford and set a standard and strive in big ways as well as small ways to change lives and really allow the athletic program to be the front porch of the university in positive ways. I'm an educator at heart. I always said the day that that stopped, I would no longer be in college athletics if I didn't believe that the real work I was doing was about education. And the good news is 45 years later, I've held true to that and have continued to feel that way. It's just another classroom with different teachers, but the challenges and the experiences of the competitive experience really lend themselves to future success, and I still believe that. So just leave you with that.
Thank you.
Two answers. One, if you have a choice to go to an organization, always pick the one that's underdeveloped, that's a diamond in the rough. Never go to one that's up there already that you have to maintain and live with people that other people hired. The real gift of my first AD job was there was nothing there. So you have a blank slate and everything is possible within your image. You don't get that chance very often. When I went to the Women's Sports Foundation, it was a relatively small, $900,000 nonprofit with 3 employees. Had that chance again and realized that I was not a maintainer, I was a grower, and that was an important thing for me in terms of job choice. Then the other thing that struck me in terms of what are the toughest assignments you've ever had, every committee I've ever chaired has been tough. Whenever you're asked to lead a group of people to aggregate opinion and to come out with a positive outcome and to make everybody feel that they are contributing, and you always have a stick in the mud someone on that committee, that to me has always challenged me. But I love to do it because I think it's a phenomenally interesting thing about people.
So do you put that in the category of the worst?
I think, all these experiences are difficult, but it's like anything else. All of you have played sports. I want to be in the game, bottom of the 7th inning, bases loaded, and I want to strike out the side. And so it's you don't perceive it as difficult. It's this great challenge that only you can do.
Okay, great. Michelle,
Yep.
how about you?
Well, I'll talk about leadership challenges that I've experienced, and I don't know how many of you remember the XFL, or any of you ever even heard of the XFL. Great, because that was a great failure. And I will say that as a leader, you learn the most about yourself during failure. And that was a very hyped up opportunity. Vince McMahon, WWF at the time, Dick Ebersol, who was a sports icon at NBC, decided to get together and launch this football league. And I was busy working at the NBA, had a great job at the NBA, solid professional sports organization, and I got a phone call about this opportunity for the XFL and to really come and build that entire organization. And it was the best job I ever had in my career, and I can still say to this day it was the best experience I ever had in terms of building and creating an entire professional sports league and shutting it down all within 13 months. But what I will tell you is that, I was responsible single-handedly working with Vince, bringing on partners like Champion and Nike, and at the time Under Armour. I met Kevin Plank, who is the CEO and founder of Under Armour. Most of you know that brand. I met Kevin Plank. He drove into the WWF headquarters at the time, asked me to meet him in the parking lot, opened up his trunk and showed me this Under Armour gear and said, nobody will take this, will your football players wear it? And you fast forward and I think through that, I was like, wow, I remember that like it was yesterday. And Kevin Plank now is obviously a very successful businessman, and Under Armour is a global brand. But at the time, I was responsible for bringing on business partners to say, hey, be part of this XFL. I was responsible for hiring hundreds of people to leave jobs that they had at the NBA, at the NFL, at Major League Baseball, giving up what they were doing to come work for us at the XFL, responsible for bringing players on board. And again, you kind of set up this entire infrastructure, and you have the first Saturday night, you go on NBC Live, and you have a 20 rating point, which is phenomenal. And then the next weekend, you have nobody watching. You learn pretty quickly about what it's like to be a leader when something doesn't go as planned. And I will tell you, it was the greatest learning experience ever for myself personally, because I had literally all eyes, whether they were business partners, they were players, they were coaches who left great careers to come do this. They're all looking at you for your response and how is it going to be handled? How is Vince McMahon going to handle this? And I will tell you that while it was the most challenging leadership experience, it goes back to things we keep talking about. If you treat people with respect, if you're honest and you're fair to your business partners, in the end, people will still remember that. And literally, we made some really tough financial decisions, but that was, we would honor every coach's contract. We would honor every player's contract. We took care of anybody who left a job. We gave them very favorable severance agreements. Any business partner, we paid them even though we weren't in business anymore. And it was really, for me, a great learning, defining moment for me, looking at somebody like Vince McMahon, who has this public persona on TV, which is not who he is as a real person and as a human being and a business partner, that we have integrity. At the end of the day, if you don't have your integrity, you have nothing. And living through moments like an obstacle, like having to start up and then subsequently shut down an entire business, you decide what kind of leader you want to be. And I really learned a lot from that about integrity and making sure you take care of people. Because, again, fast forward 13 years later, I'm still in business with a lot of those partners, and it's because they felt that they were treated fairly during a time of failure or during a time of when things didn't work out so well. And so again, I say it was a bad experience, but at the end of the day, I will tell you it really defined me and how I wanted to be a leader in the future. So it was a good story in the end.
Wow, great. Rosa, your thoughts?
That is a great story. And in fact, that makes me think that you can't be a great leader without making mistakes. And if you're afraid to make mistakes, you won't really move ahead. But it was tough being a woman. And everyone was watching and saying, oh, she can't do this. She won't be able to do this job. And then I didn't want to make a mistake. I was really worried about making a mistake because that's what they would say. She couldn't do it. And so I had to learn to admit my mistakes. And it's very difficult. I mean, you probably face that every day, right? And it's very difficult. But when you do admit mistake, it's very empowering. So 2 things on leadership. One, I was very much a consensus leader, and I think, I'm going to stereotype here, but women tended to do that. Like you walked into environments that might have been military style with a dictator at the top, but as a woman, I wanted to get everybody together and we will all figure this out and move forward, right? And so they loved me. They really loved me. But then, as the years went on, and we did the 360 surveys, and you get your feedback, from your direct reports and your peers, I was too much consensus. And they wanted me to be more decisive. And wow, it was tough because then I got this reality check. You think you're doing something really well, so you have to be very open to hearing feedback. And so I had to become a more decisive leader, and it's possible to change. And so balancing when to be, consensus leader and decisive leader is an art form, and you have to balance both of those.
Okay, thank you. Before we move into asking this group to think about the future and some recommendations they might make, I'd like to ask the question about reflecting on your impact and the different roles that you've really held. can you comment for this audience on what your thoughts are on work-life balance? Who would like to go first?
I'll start because it's going to be short. I was not good at it. And you know what? I see the guys do it very well, and I go, why am I not at the gym and they're at the gym? So anyway, you just have to do it, and I'm not a good example.
Wow. Okay. Honesty.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm not a person to talk to about work-life balance either. I will tell you that, you know, in the sports world in particular, because you're working when you essentially are putting on the show. So you're working holidays, you're working weekends. I can't say that I particularly mastered the work-life balance either. And I will tell you that a funny story last year. Again, here I am 30 years into my career. I still haven't figured that out. And Vince McMahon pulled me aside and he said, I'm really worried about you. You need to get to the gym. I go to the gym. Sometimes I go twice a day. And I said, well, if Vince can figure it out, I need to figure it out. And I still said, okay, I'm going to do it. It's my New Year's resolution. And I didn't do it. So one day, this very burly man that's kind of in the ad, like, I put things down, I lift things up, showed up in my office, and it was Vince McMahon's trainer, and he said, you're leaving the office right now, and every day for the next 6 months, you're going to train with me, and we're going to make this a habit for you. So I was able to, forced upon me, to kind of do the work-life balance, but it ultimately has to come from within. I told Vince, thank you very much, that was a kind gesture. I don't think I want to lift weights the way that guy lifts weights, but I appreciate the gesture, but I think it's very, very difficult for women in particular to find work-life balance, and I think it's about, it's going to take many generations for women to outlive that expectation that you feel like you have to work harder, you have to be there longer. Men have this internal self-confidence that, hey, I can go to the gym, and if I don't get everything done, it's okay. I'm still going to get promoted. I'm still going to have a great job. I'm not sure that women in our DNA still feel like we have the ability to not be there. And I will tell you the way I'm trying to change it for the next generation is I have many women on my staff. I have many men on my staff. And I try to tell them, you know, don't do as I do as I say, which is you need work-life balance, and really try to encourage them to learn from the mistakes that I've made, because I almost feel like I'm so far into my career, I don't know how to act any other way. But I really try to encourage them to, we've had classes for exercise, discounts on memberships, making sure I go by and check, okay, at 6 o'clock you said you were going to leave, I need you to shut down and go home and go do something fun. So I'm really trying to teach the people who work for me now not to make the same mistakes I made, because after 20 years of doing it, it is kind of a hard habit to break. And I encourage that, because I think ultimately what I've learned is those who work for me, who are happy and have that work-life balance, ultimately are more productive and great employees along the way. But I can't say I've actually figured it out either.
Right, and I see the younger generation, the young people, women and men at ESPN do have that confidence, and I think they want more, you know, out of life. So you have to figure it out. Life is too short.
Agreed.
And figure it out.
I would just say I'm not one that can speak to great work-life balance.
There's a theme here.
Even though I've written articles about it, but I can say that in my own department, with the average age of somewhere probably around 30 to 35, that we really have done things differently, and I think it's attributable to the fact that I'm a mom and a grandmom now, and that is that when we can be casual in our business, we really encourage family engagement, and that seems to help retaining staff when you can create an environment. If we're working 7 days a week, right through the core of an academic year. That is just ridiculous. One of my staff said to me a couple of years ago, do you realize we worked 28 straight days? And it was just awful, and we were exhausted, and we were barking at each other. And at the end of the day, if you don't have that work-life balance, your productivity, in every part of your life is not going to be very good. So I'm hoping that in time, leadership will figure out how to engage families, partners, and loved ones in and around the business of sport, because it's fun, and we need to be a part of the fun as well.
Interesting.
Maybe Donna has the secret. Maybe not.
No, I was immediately struck by who invented it and made it seem like it was a moment in time. To me, work-life balance is over a lifetime. And if you want to be good or great at something, at some moment in time, you make sacrifices and you put in the 10,000 hours. You want to be a great pitcher? Do you want to be a great athlete, a great artist, a great whatever? If that is your individual aspiration, at some point, nothing else is going to exist. And it has to do with your personal aspiration. Now, when you're in charge of a whole group of people who may not aspire to what you're aspiring to, that's key, that you don't impose your aspirations on others. You have to then make judgments about other people, and this is very important. How do I it's like putting a team together as a coach. There are some kids you can't ever yell at. You have to ask to do something, and there are some other kids where you just have to push. So it is an art form, getting the best out of everyone, and maybe the thing we're learning is that the leader isn't trying to make everyone in their image now. We're giving ourselves the freedom to customize work expectations depending on how people react.
To that point, I think women in the workplace have influenced and have had a major impact. I remember starting out, I don't know if you all do, but the guys would never say, I'm going to my kid's game. It was, I have an appointment. That's changed. Today, because I think women in the workplace made it more comfortable that you could care about your family and your kids and going to the games, the guys are all the time, hey, I got to get to my kid's soccer game. I got to leave now. And so it's become more friendly, and I think you'll take it from here.
Okay, great. So moving towards the future, today we have an audience of would-be executives. And so I asked the panel, what competencies would you recommend this group of would-be executives develop as they really present themselves to companies and jobs in the sports industry? Competencies, what do they need?
I'll take that one. There are two that come to mind for me. One in particular is real work-life experience, even if it's on a volunteer basis. It's great being in the academic world and learning about theories of marketing or statistics or anything that you're learning, but with real life experience, I find that you can come to the table with knowledge that will really help a prospective employer. So I know a lot of people say it's hard to find a job. You don't have to find a job. You can volunteer. There are so many sports and entertainment organizations out there that would willingly take interns and give credit for those types of things. So the more practical, real world experience you can get before you leave the safety of this environment, I will tell you it pays off in spades. And when I look at resumes, if I see that somebody's had volunteer work at an event or has done some kind of logistics job or has helped answering phones for customer service, anything that really proves to me that they've got some real practical work experience is really, really helpful. So again, and it doesn't have to be paid. I know that sounds like a luxury, but again, volunteer any place that you can. It's really practical, hands-on experience. The other thing I will say is presentation skills and the ability to communicate. I will tell you that whether it's verbal or written, I think today's generation is you want to do a text and you want to say you is you, not Y-O-U. In the workforce, the first thing that I look for is, can somebody present themselves in a way that's compelling? Can they present an idea? Can they write an email that makes me feel like they're a professional and they're smart and they can communicate well? Any kind of communication skills, presentation skills, it's we're just a lazier generation. We communicate in a very different way, and yet I think it's really important at the end of the day, if you're sitting in a business meeting and you're pitching an idea to me and you can't convince me that it's a good idea, we're never going to get anywhere. So 99% of being successful in business is being able to communicate effectively. So anything you can do to improve those skills, again, written, verbal, presentation, I encourage you to take those types of classes because, again, first impression and the ability to convince someone of your idea will make you successful in the long run. And those are two things that I look for and highly recommend.
Couldn't agree more. Internships, communications. I'm amazed how many, and I don't care from what college, even Ivy League, how many graduates could not write properly, did not know grammar. And when you have to, you're not necessarily going to be in PR, but if you're making a case or writing a report, and you need to express yourself and get that argument right on. The other thing I want to add, in addition to communications, and I should mention too, be yourself. There's a book that's out that we undervalue people who are introverts. So you can still be an introvert, you can be shy, but when you have that interview or you have a report or something, you do want to be able to push yourself out of your comfort zone and present your viewpoints. You have to figure that out. So I would just add that to it. And strategic thinking. Look at what's going on around the world, around you. If you're in marketing, situations and maybe how a company made a major mistake, what would you have done differently? Start to hone those skills of strategic thinking.
I would just say that if you have opportunities to participate in internships, they're so important, whether they're paid or not. That is the beginning of your opportunity to make statements about who you are, how you're going to work, how you want to be viewed, whether or not you're going to be a team player. Do you have a can-do attitude? Are you willing to go the extra mile? I mean, at Hartford over the years, we've relied heavily on internships, and I can't tell you the number of people that have gotten full-time jobs out of those internships. And maybe they go away and we say, hey, remember so-and-so, she was here 5 years ago. She was great. We really loved her. She did a fantastic job. And was willing to be a part of the team. It doesn't matter where you go or what you do, you're not going to be alone in your work. You're going to have people to your right and to your left to get tasks accomplished. And so being able to work, lead, sit back at times, but drive home issues and tasks in a way that speaks well to your company and your job opportunities will really bode well for you. So can-do attitude is really important. I may not understand that, but I want to try. Give me a shot. That kind of an attitude is critical.
One of the mentors I had early on, who was my PhD advisor, said to me, I am going to help you, and you just have to be willing to work. I'm going to get you on committees in the profession so that the people who will give you your next job will know who you are. And so I always say to people, starting in the business, get into professional organizations, volunteer for every single committee, try to get on the committee with, who's the chair? The chair is a bigwig name. And you want to do everything for that bigwig name that you possibly can so that they are saying about you, tremendous communicator, great critical thinker, great strategic mind. But that's what this networking thing is. It is volunteering so that someone who is already trusted in the business can attest to your quality. Everyone I've ever hired, if I were going to hire you, I would say to you, work for somebody I know and trust, because I'm not going to hire you blind, and I'm not going to hire on a piece of paper.
First thing I do when I look at resumes, and when I was at Connecticut, I shared every search that we had in the department over 11 years. And one of the first things I do is flip to the back and see where they've worked and who is recommending them. And then I never go to those people to ask them, can you tell us a little bit about that individual? You go to individuals that have worked side by side with them versus someone who's on that list. Not that you don't have a good list, but you want to create a network that will speak to your skills and your talent level and your commitment to a professional career. Because maybe there'll be a time when someone might take a chance on you, and it's going to be your job to prove that they took a good chance and that you're a valid candidate.
Anybody else? Anything to add?
Okay, so my last question, before we open it to the floor for this panel, if you pause really for a moment and you look back on your journey, what are the major insights that you'd like to share with us today and leave with this audience? Do I have a volunteer? Rosa.
Since I'm retired now. You know, in addition to the work-life balance, I'm going to add another thing to your plate. Throughout my career, and sometimes I wasn't able to do this very much, but I was involved with charities. And if you can, so we're talking about volunteering at work and so on, but if you can volunteer with charities and nonprofits, you also get known that way. But it takes you outside of your world where, you know, everything's going crazy, and then you see, you know, how others are having, you know, difficulties that are profound, and you could help them. It really takes you outside of yourself. So I would recommend that you try to do that. Now, when we wwere launching ESPN2 in 3 months, launching a network, I know what you mean, you know, then you have to be smart about it. I could not obviously do that volunteer work at that time, but I, you know, strongly encourage, no matter what you do. Some of you may go into that as a full-time job, and it's a great career. But even no matter what you're working at, if you can find time to give back, it will really balance your life.
Just to echo that, because I don't have time to volunteer, as you can tell from my job. But what I will tell you is when I got to WWE, they had a community outreach group that was all of one person. And I knew that the McMahon family was very generous and really wanted to give back. They had a long-standing partnership with Make-A-Wish. The company didn't always get the best treatment from the media. You know, we're in this terrible business, and it's, you know, a lot of negative perceptions about it when it really is a great family-run organization. And I went to Vince and I said, you know, I don't have the time to volunteer. I know that you at your core really believe in military, you believe in education, you believe in hopes and dreams and supporting these things for children around the world that you meet. I really think we need to rethink this. And 2 years ago, again, it was more kind of my personal mission. I couldn't take the time out of my day, but I knew if I could channel WWE resources towards the community, what a great impact it would have for the people working there who don't have the time to volunteer, but also just for perceptions about who we are as a company. And that was really a win-win. You mentioned in my bio, in the last year, we've become a founding partner of the USA Special Olympics Games. We're a huge financial supporter of that. We launched a partnership with Susan G. Komen around breast health awareness, which we hadn't that partnership before. We've done things with Hire Heroes, which is an organization that helps veterans who are coming back from war to find jobs. All of these are now underwritten and supported by WWE. Kaboom, that you mentioned, we're going to New Orleans in a couple weeks for WrestleMania, which is our Super Bowl. And I said I really wanted to leave a lasting legacy for the children there who don't have playgrounds. And so we were partnering with an organization where we're literally going to spend 2 days building a WWE-themed playground for the school that has no resources to do that. And so again, I think when I look back, you know, you look at all the long hours, and I can't necessarily volunteer, but if I can direct some of our company's resources to making a difference in the world, I can feel good about that at night and really feel like I'm making a difference. So I agree. It's the one thing we probably didn't talk about is at some point giving back is really, really important, and it's probably the most rewarding of all the things I've done. Those things are probably the ones I'm most proud of, those relationships and the fact that you can touch lives that way. It's really pretty powerful. As far as other, you know, kind of looking back and words of wisdom, the only advice I will give you sitting in the seat that you were in many years ago is don't angst over the decisions of what your career is going to be. Just make a decision and go with it, because in the end, you think that one job choice or that one decision is going to dictate the rest of your career. It really isn't. And when I look back over it, like, oh my gosh, should I take the job with Procter & Gamble, or should I go to Nabisco? Should I go to the NBA, or should I go work for the NFL? In the end, you make your success, and don't get hung up on, like, is it exactly the right choice, because you'll make it a good choice for you. And again, I hear college students kind of angsting over which one. Just find something, and if it's not for you, you course correct in a year. I've had many things that didn't work out and many things that worked out really well. In the end, I can tell you, if I look back, I would have never imagined the path that I took, becoming a chemical engineer to a marketer to a sports marketer. I would never guess in a million years that I would be where I am today. So don't overthink it. Just go with your gut, do a little bit of homework, and then course correct along the way.
I would just support that. I think that's a great term. I've never heard that before, course correct. But you're going to find that there are going to be things that you're going to experience or take on as jobs that just aren't going to work for you. And it's okay to make certain that you maximize where you are as you begin to look for your next step and learn from where you've been. I've always personally felt that you have your greatest opportunities to learn about yourself, to challenge yourself when things aren't perfect. And there is no one sitting here that has had a perfect path. We've had disappointments and challenges and days when we thought we weren't going to get up the next day because we worked so hard. But at the end of the day, you will land in the right place, and just keep faith in yourself and value the experiences that are not exactly what you thought they were going to be as you course correct.
Just to echo what everybody else said, but I think giving, getting into the habit of giving on a very personal level is important. If you can look at everybody you meet and look at them and say, how can I help you? As a first thought. Pat and I haven't seen each other, for I don't know how long. And she says, I'm going into retirement. She's talking about her home and everything else. I'll help you with your condo decision. But if you can get into that habit of looking to how you can help every individual, whether it's an employee, a student you met for the first time, the little 7th grader that sends you an email saying, I'm doing my 7th grade project, tell me all you know about Title IX. You say yes. You absolutely say yes, and you do it. And that leads to a very unselfish career. You sleep well at night. You're always feeling good because you're giving. And I always say this to young people. Don't be so selfish that you won't share your best work product and ideas. Everybody thinks, well, if I give it to you, well, then you're going to take it and run, and somehow I'm going to lose something. But no one can ever do it as well as you can do it. And the generosity of giving really, really pays off down the line.
That's true. Good point. Great way to end. So a round of applause for our panel. Now we can open the floor for conversations and questions.
Hi, I am Khadija, and I'm faculty in the College of Business. Actually, I I mean, I'd like to thank you first for being so authentic and for sharing so insightful stories. I'm sure the audience has been impressed with those stories and has been also impressed with the honesty and the integrity level. I am now very much interested in knowing your opinions about the future of women in sports here in the US and at international level. Thank you.
You're going to be the expert internationally, Donna.
I'm going to field that one.
I would just say more quickly, if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm as much progress as there's been, and it's been fantastic to see with scholarships, the growth in play, and it just continues to amaze me how fast, right, the women have achieved and broken records of men. Actually, not that they're competing. I know we've talked about that many times, but I'm very disappointed. Not to see more women in key positions in, certainly in my field of sports information, but also women as coaches, right? I mean, you all can, I'm just launching for you.
I would just say that we clearly, my president and I laughed because when I was in 93, I was named the 13th AD at the Division I level, and so many years had gone by, and at that point, I think we're up to 30 now out of 341 Division I schools. Well, that's just abysmal. That's less than one female a year into the ranks of leadership at the Division I level. I will say this, though, that talented women have a chance in all the different areas of sport-related work. And if you're good and you're excited about what you're doing, you have a chance to have multiple opportunities. And so it's my hope that even though in the director spot, the numbers haven't been that good, that in fact, all the other areas, communications, law, health sciences, et cetera, that more and more women are being hired. We need and must have an appropriate representation. Yes, because the law says it, but more importantly, because of who we are as people. And I feel the same way about diversity in our ranks, not just the gender issue, but broad diversity in our leadership positions across the board.
Hear, hear, and by the way, hear, hear to UNH and Debbie Chin back over there, right? Yeah.
You know, I wish I had a more positive vision of the future. When you look at the participation and advances of Title IX over the last 45 years, no question, we've gotten to the point of 42% of all high school athletes are female, 43% of all college athletes are female, but the gaps are 7% at the high school level, and it's 6 and 8, there's like 15% at the college level. And where the real issue is in positions of power. Sport is still the last bastion of male power, and every decision-making position is dominated by men. 80% of all coaches are men. When you look at sports editors in the United States, in terms of newspapers, you look at 94% of all sports editors are male, 92% white male. When you look at athletic directors, you're looking at 80 to 82% of all athletic directors are men. And I don't care what the position is, the more powerful the position, the more higher paying the position, whether it's in the International Olympic Committee or FIFA or any of the sport federations or the USOC, we are so far away from feminist thinking in the sport arena. It is very, very sad. It's going to take your generation of men and women who have grown up competing with each other and respecting each other, then assuming positions of power to share power. there is no willingness to share that power right now. Evidence, look at the Olympic Games ski jumping. I mean, how long did this take?
Yeah.
And
Is that ridiculous?
you look at that and say, what is going on here
Yeah.
that it took almost 12 years? You look at what we went through with ESPN in terms of the extreme sports and equity of salary and things like that. So there's much work to be done. And the situation in other countries, we're so far ahead of other countries in terms of Title IX. When you look at the Middle East and just being a woman in the Middle East, they're still not playing sports, period, or being allowed to play in this world we accept for granted. So a lot to be done, a lot to be done.
Yeah, and just to add to that, because I probably am the one that comes from more of a professional sports organization, which I will say that I'm probably a little more optimistic because I come at it from their businesses, and at the end of the day, I think the mentality has changed. I don't think it's overnight. I still will find myself that plenty of times I look around the room and I'm the only female in the room. I happen not to notice it. I don't know if other people do. I just don't pay attention to that. What I will say is that it's going to take a lot of women like yourselves who are in the audience to keep forging forward. When I look at my organization, however, at lower levels, I will tell you that I'm seeing more and more women moving up in the ranks, and I think it's going to take time. But I will tell you that in my world, it's about who's the most competent, who is the most skilled, who is the most talented. It's not necessarily about gender. So I'm encouraged in terms of what I see at the lower levels and the gender balance. What I will say is that this is not just a female issue. I will say there are a lot of men sitting out there. If you can mentor women, if you can be open to the idea that some of it is that men just don't think that way. I mean, I work for Vince McMahon, and I went in one day and said, listen, I know, again, this is in the spirit of speaking up, and women, you have to be brave, but if you find men who believe in it, I went into Vince and I said, listen, I know you think that men and women can equally do a job, but I know there's a gentleman in the company, and I know what he's making, and I know what I'm making. So let me ask you, do you think I'm 80% less valuable than him? And he said, he looked at me and he paused. No, in fact, you're more valuable than he is. I said, great, then it would be awesome if I could be compensated that way. And you know what? 2 weeks later, he made an adjustment. And not because Vince thinks equally. He thinks women are just as capable as men, but it's sometimes the mentality, and it's going to take strong women and strong men to be open to those changes. And I really encourage men to think about that as well. If you're in a position of hiring, or you're in a position of dictating somebody's salary or what position or what title they have, there are kind of natural instincts, and we've all got to challenge each other to think about that. Well, I tell you, I'm a little more encouraged in my world because it's a little more based on merit and whether you can do the job or not. I will tell you, there are still not a lot of women at the level that I'm at in the professional sports world. I can probably count us on one hand, and we're going to have to keep pushing. But again, I will say that it's not just a female issue. Men have just an equal part in helping us to make that possible.
Good. Another question from the floor.
This is when you get out of your comfort zone.
Although I have to say, you've been very patient.
Yeah, and just one addition to that. This is about, what do you want the world to be like for your daughter or your wife? When it comes to, guys who are used to advantage and power, deciding whether or not they want to help women. At some point, that is where the decision lies. What do you want your daughter to face?
I remember Donna, decades ago, when we kept talking about, ESPN was showing women's sports more than any other network, and to this day shows the most women's sports. But we kept saying, how are we going to get more coverage of women's sports? How is this going to happen? And I remember you saying, not until it hits home, when fathers with their daughters, are challenging why they're not getting a scholarship or why they're not getting equal salary, that when it hit home, fathers and daughters. And
True.
when a bunch of male executives at ESPN, again, decades ago, went to a University of Connecticut women's basketball game. It was a great game against Tennessee. And they were so impressed and wowed by that it made a huge difference in their being more open to more coverage. So men, you do play a great role.
Yes.
We have a couple online questions, and one is about your perspective on income inequality as it relates to men and women working in the industry.
I don't care what industry you're working in, sport is no different. Income inequality is a function of job segregation. We are still not putting women producers at, when you're looking at television, we're not putting women in the high paying positions that are considered male positions. Nothing is worse than sport in this regard. When you look at the percentage of women coaching men's teams, 3%. 3% of all the coaches of men's teams are women. Now, why is this? Why is this? And especially when 57% of all the coaches of women's teams are men. I mean, it's like saying why, it's like having English classes being taught by 97% males and saying, what's going on here? So this, as I said before, the higher the position in sport, the more the pay, the greater the percentage of males. And it's discrimination. You want to put a label on it, it's discrimination.
Okay. Another question over here.
That's all right. I'll just keep. Rosa, you were saying you were shy at some point in your life. All right, so why don't you just kind of elaborate on that and give us some suggestions on how people who might be in this room right now.
Right, who I told them, get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and
I was,
what should we be doing at university
yeah,
to deal with that?
I was terribly shy. I'm not just saying this. When I was a kid and the doorbell would ring, I would go hide under the table, the kitchen table. And my mother was so worried about me, so she sent me to ballet school because that was the thing you did. Sports would have been
Yeah, same thing.
But I was playing sports with my brothers and in the neighborhood, and I think that helped build some esteem, and I could beat them at certain things like ice hockey. I could stay up on my skates and they couldn't. But anyway, I think that you have to really look at yourself and how you're coming. So I would take myself out of myself. You're going to think I'm really crazy now. But I would get out of a meeting, and I can't tell you how many times there was something I was thinking of in a meeting. It can happen in the classroom too. I was thinking of it, and somebody else said it. And I'm saying, doggone it, why didn't I speak up? And that happened a number of times, and I said, I got to speak up. A couple of times I did. People thought it was stupid, and you got to deal with that. And don't be too hard on yourself. So don't be afraid of a mistake, bringing up something. I can't even remember some of the stupid things I said in a meeting. It passes. So push yourself. Force yourself to speak up. Do it in the classroom. It starts here. So you just have to psych yourself.
Not only that, but we have a responsibility. When we recognize, that anyone is shy
Yes.
or introverted, we have to say, yes, you can. We have to, reinforce the values of people with talent. I've always said that I have a nephew who's a motor moron. Putting one foot in front of the other is very difficult. I would never, his hand-eye coordination is absolutely non-existent. If I had a catch with him, I'd kill him. He'd put his glove up and it'd hit him in the head. No way is this kid an athlete, right? But from day one, he got the message he was going to be in athletics. And when he went to high school, 6'3", whatever, some coach went up to him and said, "You're going to be my starting center." He says, I'm not an athlete. He says, all you have to do is knock them down, lay on top of them, don't let them get up, you're going to be great. And this message is given to boys all the time. Now, we have to just start giving those same messages to girls. Makes a
And
difference.
leaders, and so professors and leaders in the classroom have to, figure out how they can also encourage more dialogue, not having all the same people speaking all the time.
Another example of that, University of Texas rowing team, I was down there because a boat was, they put your name on a boat, so you get to do the champagne thing. And I got to meet this whole team. Half of the novice team in rowing had never rowed before, had never participated in athletics before. And I said to these kids, I said, you mean you didn't play sports in high school? You didn't do whatever? How did you get to play? And what the head rowing coach did was to take a boat, put it on a sawhorse in the middle of campus, sit there with a clipboard, look at every woman coming past, say, you're going to be a rower. Come over here. I'll see you at 3 o'clock. And but it's always worked for boys. We have to start doing that for women.
True.
Yeah.
So the message here is, to some degree, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to say what you're thinking. Don't be afraid to try something new, and don't be afraid to fail. All really key messages that the panel leaves with us today. Do we have any other questions? We have one more.
Hi. I'm a senior athlete here at the university on the women's basketball team. And as my athletic career is starting to come to an end, I'm really trying to dive into developing my professional career. So outside of internships and volunteer work, what tips or advice may you have in regards to trying to get your foot in the door in the sports industry? Oh, my name is Ayana, by the way.
With no one else. I actually think it's more difficult for athletes because of the time you're spending playing your sport, right? And you might not be able to get those internships, except perhaps in the summer. That sometimes I have found that it's more challenging for athletes because they don't have those internships on their resume. I don't know if others agree with this.
Absolutely.
And so I think that you very quickly do want to try to fit in how you can work with someone, whether it's on a project or work in a press box at a game or, talk with people in the athletic department. It's not 6 degrees of separation, it's more like 3 degrees of separation. Somebody, it's your professors in sports management, so on, can help advise you on what might be out there where you can take steps toward your goal.
I'm a great believer in staying in school, too, especially if you are an athlete, as Rosa says. Look for a graduate assistantship to help you pay for your master's degree. It'll allow you time to make up for lost internship time, lost volunteer time, lost committee time. Once you leave, once you leave school, you get used to an income. It's very hard to go back. I say stay in school as long as you can, and even though this work-life experience is important, you can get it while you're a grad assistant. That's a low-paying job. It's a job, though.
Right.
So I encourage athletes to stay in
Good
school if
advice.
they possibly can. Get more degrees.
The only thing I would add, again, because I hire so many interns and athletes who are straight out of school, I will tell you that what gets my attention is those who kind of take risk. Again, we talk about don't be afraid. And I will give you an example. I get a lot of emails. People can figure out the email at WWE. They guess it and they'll email you. What I will tell you is I'm most struck by those who have persistence and kind of say, hey, they weren't afraid to email me. I'm a chief revenue officer. I work for Vince McMahon. They send me an email and they said, listen, I went to your HR department, but I really want to just shoot you a note. I'm just looking for somebody to help me. And that gets me every time. And the reason it goes back to what Donna was saying, if there's something that's most rewarding to me is opening the door for somebody who's sitting in the seat that you're sitting in. And I'll give you an example. I had somebody email me, she's a junior, I think, right now, at a local university, not here, and she said, listen, I'm a lifelong tennis fan. You knew my mom 20 years ago. I really want to go work in tennis. Can you help me? And she sent me this great heartfelt email. She attached her resume. I'm really busy, but I looked down and I thought, you know what? If I take 10 minutes out of my day, I know 10 people at the USTA that work at the US Open. I'm going to forward the resume. I'm going to pick up the phone. And she emailed me today and said, I don't know how to thank you. I just got hired for an internship for the US Open. And so I will tell you, don't always just reach out to the HR people. Don't always just reach out to the mid-level or junior people. Be gutsy. And because I will tell you, it's people at our level that feel like they want to give back and they want to help. So don't be afraid to kind of take a chance and say, I didn't know, I forgot the woman I knew 20 years ago. I remember her now, and now I say, oh, it's her daughter. You feel like you want to help people, give them a chance, and it's just another way to get in the door, and it's going to take work. But I will tell you, don't be afraid to do that, because there are many of us at our points in our career that are reflective and say, how can I give back and how can I help? I can tell you today, I was so excited that I saw that happened, that I just made a difference in this person's career. They're trying to figure out how to get started. They're in the door now. So I would encourage you to think up here at these levels in organizations, and don't be afraid to take a chance, because it works with me every time. I'm telling you, I'm a sucker for that, because I know how hard it is to be in that seat, and yet it does take somebody that you know that may be able to open the door for you. So again, don't just go the traditional route of emailing an HR person or emailing, the mid-level marketing person. I will say that you can get attention by doing a great email or create a voicemail. I just encourage you to think differently that way and reach out on that level as well.
I want to answer that as a member of the university community, because I happen to, some of you come to me, Kevin, Brian, in terms of internships. And the thing that is so troublesome to me is when they come as a senior and say, oh, I think I'd like to be involved in college athletics. And I say, where have you been for the last 4 years? How do you know you want to be in college athletics? And so I say encourage, as the individuals today have said, you need to reach out. You need to take that step, and you need to go, and you need to talk to somebody. And you could find, well, I don't think I want to be in college athletics because it's miserable, okay? Or it's this, or it's that. But you cannot wait till you're seniors and try to figure it out. Okay, you've missed the boat. And this is for student athletes as well as students. So that's just my 2 cents.
I would also say that if you think about what your next step is, then it behooves you to try to find someone in their downtime, and for those of us in college athletics, it's generally the summer, and say, would you mind if I came and took a half an hour of your time to find out what are the things I need to do to get a job like yours? And when you do that, if you do it well, you've got an insight. I always say, if you want to be an AD, I can save you 5 years. I can tell you exactly what you need to do, and it's not always what you read about in books or what you think. I can save you 5 years on your career path, and you can be the youngest female AD at the D1 level in the country. So look at where you want to go next, and then see if you can professionally grab a half an hour of that individual's time just to explore what it takes to do the job they're doing. They'll be flattered, they'll want to share, and that person becomes a connection in your network.
Anybody else? No? So, thank you all for
Pointing back there.
coming to, oh, there's one more question? Okay, great. Last question of the evening.
Hi, my name is Annika. I'm one of the freshmen here at UNH on the women's volleyball team. I just had a question. So I'm a mechanical engineering major, so it's primarily like a guy's field as well. What have you guys found is a way to kind of stand out over the guys, like when it's predominantly a guy's kind of like area?
Just
That's great.
work hard, get results, and show them that you're serious, really serious about what you're doing. And I used to make a mistake often, just in the hallway of the company. People walk by, hey, how's it going? I'd say, oh, great. I'm busy. I'm really busy. And I kept saying this. I thought, oh, wow, that's not good. Say something really substantive. Say, hey, did you read about, now I don't know mechanical engineering, but did you read about that stadium and the issue that they had in XYZ? Bring something substantive to the conversation and really engage in communication and always be a team player.
I'm a great believer in finding mentors, not one mentor, but as many as you possibly can. And what I said before in terms of volunteering for committees, go to the professor with the most influence at the university and say, I want to be involved. How can you help me either serve on a committee, get involved in my professional organization, take some responsibility for me, but reaching out to someone in power who can help you. Does that make sense? Are you an undergraduate?
Yes.
A freshman? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Freshman.
And for all of you, especially the women in STEM fields, the numbers of, the percentages of women in STEM fields are really scary. You look at everything from computer technology to architecture, engineering, you're looking at 14%, 16%, 17% female. And when you get out into the field, which you will, you have to be like an athletics recruiter to get more women in. What the very few women in the field are doing is going and presenting at auditorium things. Get involved in science. You know, the whole school is there, and a woman comes up and you say, well, maybe I'll be a role model. You have to act like a college head coach recruiter. Before you go to the school, say, who are your top 6 kids? And show me their papers, and I want one-on-one meetings with them, and I want you to come to my school. I mean, that's what it's going to take to get the STEM fields to catch up to women in athletics.
The only thing I'll add to that, because I was in your shoes, I was a chemical engineer, and so I was probably one of 2 female in my entire class. And I will say, I've said this before, but I will tell you that besides the hard work and being prepared, that's really important, I will tell you that communication skills, even in the engineering field, what I believe made me stand out is I could do an interview, I could speak, I could be social, I knew how to talk to people, I wasn't shy. So I don't know if that was good or bad, but you know, being able to be in a field that's very male-dominated and being able to shine in an area that maybe they're not so good at, being a good communicator will tell you it changes the world. Communication changes the world. You can be the best engineer, but if you can't communicate your plan, it's not going to get you anywhere. If you want to be in sports ultimately, you want to be noticed, I will tell you hands down, the first people I notice at junior levels are those that can communicate well, that have personality. Don't be afraid to be who you are. I think somebody said that as well. Like, it's okay, you're female. Don't be afraid to be that, but be really good at that and then add to it your personality and the ability to communicate. That, to me, always gets my attention. And I think in a field of male-dominated mechanical engineers who, sorry, might not be so interesting, you can stand out. You're an athlete. You're interesting. You can present. I think you can really put yourself together as a very much a package that stands out above and beyond. So again, I go back to communication really will make a difference.
But it's relationship building too.
Exactly, exactly.
And relationship building starts with finding out what that person is interested in. And you would know this in mechanical engineering where we wouldn't know it up here. But I know it in the world of sport. If I'm in an all-male field and I want to start a relationship with somebody, my first question is, what sport do you play? Which one do you like? And have him start talking about himself.
Right. That's good advice.
And then it works from, and it works from there. So to engage the mechanical engineer you want to get on your side who doesn't care a stitch about women, and doesn't want to be involved with you, if you can figure out what his specialty is, what he loves and he's passionate about, and begin that relationship building, then he'll become an advocate and a mentor.
That's so true. I dealt with so many guys who didn't want me to be there. And behind my back, they were saying, she's not going to last. And you know what I did? I made it a point to really, get to know them and talk with them and reach out to them. People want to be around positive people and people who are, interested in you. So if you take all those steps that Donna's talking about and you become that team player with a positive attitude, you'll have no problem.
Okay, it's been a great evening. So I'd like to thank the panelists tonight on behalf of the College of Business, and particularly the Department of Sports Management who put this together, all the people who worked to organize this and publicize this. We've had a great time this evening, so let's give our panelists a round of applause.